The United Nations makes no distinction between religions when it comes to measuring the vulnerability of refugees. Your government does. Why? And why don't you trust the UN's selection and screening process as evidenced by your government's decision to call for an audit? And whose idea was it to triage based on religious minorities? Was it yours? And what are you afraid of?
I know that we recently, in the changes we made, we took out the necessity of the UN designation primarily because it was slowing down the process, and that had been widely called for by groups in the refugee area. But the obvious reason that we prioritize vulnerable religious and ethnic groups, we prioritize the most vulnerable people in terms of our refugee acceptance policies, and the minority religious and ethnic groups in the Syrian Iraq area are in fact being targeted by ISIS and its allies for extermination. And that is why we put a higher priority. It's not exclusionary, but obviously why that is an important factor in making our refugee selection decisions.
CTV. Good morning, Mr. Harper. I'd just like to follow up on that. When you say it isn't exclusionary, there is some suggestion that in fact it was. Immigration officials, even people within your own campaign, are saying that your office was trying to weed out Shia and Sunni Muslims, that you were choosing Christians and minorities over Shia Sunni Muslims. Why the emphasis?
Let's be very clear. The vulnerable ethnic and religious minorities that are being targeted for slaughter by ISIS and its allies are not exclusively Christian by any means. That includes Muslim minorities as well and other groups. But in the end, as we've been very clear, we don't make the decisions on refugee selection. They're not made by political people. Those decisions are made by arm's-length bureaucrats under the policy.